Ladies and gentlemen, Laurie Cardoza-Moore, and we are at the 2025 National Religious Broadcasters Convention. We are coming to you live by audio, and we have an interview today that I think you're going to be very interested in. You know that PJTN has been at the forefront of fighting the propaganda and the anti-Semitic content in textbooks and instructional materials. And today with us is PJTN's own senior academic advisor, Dr. Sandra Alfonsi. We are going to talk about what happened on October 7th. We're going to talk about curriculum that was available on October 9th, 2023. I wanted to know, how did the educators, how did the departments of education get access to curriculum to teach about October 7th when the event had only taken place 2 days prior? So, Dr. Alfonsi, it's so wonderful to have you. She is my pride and joy. She does the most amazing work and the most amazing research. Thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here, as always, with you, with PJTN, and at the NRB, because I believe it's important for us. It's a place where our presence is very needed. There are very few spokesmen in the United States who stand forth to fight global anti-Semitism and to stand for the state of Israel, and to be able to be in the midst of Christian media and have Laurie Cardoza-Moore and PJTN, our evangelical brothers and sisters, stand up for me, for my people, and for my country. It's an honor to work with you. I don't consider I work for you. I consider that I work with you. Now, Laurie asked me a very good question, because I live in Israel. I live in Jerusalem. I've been there since the day that this war broke out. It didn't break out as a war. It broke out as a genocidal incursion into South Israel for the purpose of creating a genocide and killing as many Jews as possible in a short period of time.
So Sandra, before you go into any more detail, I just want to acknowledge, so that our audience knows when they watch this program, we just had one of the hardest weeks of the last year and a half. The Bibbis family came back. It's been devastating for the country. It's been very difficult. And your being here to share this information with our audience is so critically important, because Dr. Alfonsi lives in Jerusalem. She was there when war broke out. I want that to be very clear, that you understand when she's speaking, she is speaking firsthand. Please continue, Dr. Alfonsi.
To talk about the Bibbis family for a minute? Would you like me to? Okay. The Bibbis family was a mother and a father and two little children, a baby and a toddler. When the Nakba fighters, that is the actual name for the Hamas terrorists who raided Israel and did the slaughter, Yarden Bibbis, the father, tried to protect his children and his wife by leaving the house, believing that the terrorists would follow him and his two babies and wife would be safe. They were in the safe room. He never knew, because he was captured. He was taken hostage, and he was taken to Gaza, not knowing that more of the fighters entered his house, kidnapped his wife and the two babies. And there are horrible pictures of Shiri, that's the mama, and Ariel, but they were taken to Gaza. They were there for almost 2 years. We have been trying to free in the hostage you have to understand that what Israel is doing by maintaining the war and continuing the war, it's going on, and they're not finishing the war because we're trying to get our people back alive.
Right.
And for every one hostage, Israel has had to release a minimum of 40 terrorists. And that is something that we have to understand, that we could have finished off Gaza, but trying not to also destroy our hostages has delayed this completely. We've been trying to find Shiri and the two boys and there have been no reports of them. Last week, almost 500 days in captivity, Yarden was brought out. For the first time, the other hostages before were in better condition. When you say they look good, doesn't mean anything about their minds because you can't see, but physically, the previous hostages were in decent condition. The three that were released 2 weeks ago, including Yarden, look like mirror images from the Holocaust.
Right.
And that is something which I don't really like. I don't really care for the imagery and the use of the Holocaust vocabulary. It's fitting, yes. It is a genocide, yes, but it's not the Holocaust. It's not the Shoah. He was released not knowing that his wife and his babies were dead. And then the last week, Hamas released 4 hostages. The 2 babies and Shiri, supposedly, and 1 male hostage. When the coffins were locked, if you want to look at evil and you want to think about what these people are, you realize that these terrorists who did this then put the bodies in the coffins and locked it so that the IDF could not examine it. And we said, as soon as that news came out, there's something wrong inside the coffins. They are not what they're supposed to be. So, but when they were finally opened, the remains of the 2 babies were there, the remains of Oded was there, and the 4th one, it was supposed to be the body of Shiri. It was an anonymous woman, but an Arab. So we don't know whether they killed her and put her in. Nothing, because we didn't keep her for forensics. So that's what we went through. That was bad enough, Laurie. But when the news came out, the father, I admire Yarden, he's strong. He wanted the truth to come out about what had been done. Those babies had been strangled by hand. And the results are they were dead by November 2023. Forensics showed that. They were strangled and then their bodies were mutilated to hide the evidence of the strangulation because it had been said that they had been killed by the IDF during a bombing, and everything disproved it. And then the next day, by miracle, they found Shiri's body.
Right.
And she had been strangled, brutalized, and raped, dead.
It's a horrible what Israel has had to endure for the last year and a half since this took place. So many people have been affected by this in the United States. I was just reading that Milei in Argentina had a national day of mourning. This is, it's unprecedented, the response from the world about what has happened with this family. So thank God that the family is finally reunited. It's horrible.
No, today the funerals are taking place.
That's right. So we want to honor their memory as well by speaking and telling their story. But going back to the education, thank you for sharing that. I know that's very difficult.
But it needs to be said because you said a sentence that's very important. What was done to the babies and the family is very important suddenly to the world. But what has been done to Israel and the slaughter in the kibbutzim, only Palestinian outrage.
So the question now for you is, we have a major problem in education. We're not teaching the history of what has gone, what's transpired in that country. We're using words like the West Bank instead of Judea and Samaria. And Christians, our audience, knows that when they read their Bible, they're not reading the West Bank. They're reading about Judea and Samaria. So we have a big problem, a big disconnect in education curriculum because of the propaganda. You found evidence 2 days after October 7th, 2023, that education, that curriculum was already prepared to teach about this, ladies and gentlemen. Think about this. How in the world do you have the biggest catastrophic event take place in the nation of Israel when they're invaded by these evil monsters, and then 2 days later you already have the curriculum to talk about this issue? Dr. Alfonsi, tell us how did this happen? How could they have done this? And what was the extent of the content?
How they did it is very simple. The Israeli-Arab conflict of the first generation of textbooks then turned into the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And we now entered into the Hamas-Israel conflict.
Right.
All the paperwork, all the background work exists, first of all, because what I found, and I think the material is bad enough, but what horrified me is the source that got out all this material by the 9th of October. And that was the San Diego Office of the Board of Education, their website, the Education Week organization, and the third one, which was nothing surprised me with San Diego or with Edu Week, but the third one really, it left me wondering where this happened and how we never knew it. The unity between the New York Times and the Learning Network. This was how, by the 9th of the month, after the 7th of the month, by the 9th, the San Diego Office of Education website became the source of the material for the entire United States, because they linked their website, they gave the link to all of the state boards of education, to all of the education organizations, and I found that, this is what's strange. I've said to you several times that they're so egotistical that they don't know when to hide something. And you find it in the little paragraph at the bottom of Education Week. I found, and I read this quote, and I said, I know that quote. And then our heartfelt thanks to the San Diego office of the Department of Education. So that told me then, right then, that is the source, and I never would have thought of a state board of education being the source of the anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, anti-American. They are the source of everything. On one side, we've done the work together. I wasn't surprised that it was San Diego. I would have been surprised if it had been New Jersey or elsewhere. But considering the ethnic studies in the state of California, nothing surprises me. But the other thing that I found, and how does it get out so quickly, is that it goes to major organizations with email mailing lists of thousands of teachers, thousands of administrators, and thousands of librarians. Now, for the first time, I've been dealing with a librarian who I gave her my white paper, and she said, the American Library Association is leftist, so we're dealing with that.
Well, we know that. We've
Yes.
seen the evidence of
Yes.
that with the anti-Semitic library books, the anti-American, anti-Judeo-Christian, anti-Israel content in these library books that we are trying to get removed from these schools.
So the San Diego has, the Department of Education, I'll just call it San Diego for now, has its own archives of materials dating all the way back to when it was the Arab-Israeli conflict. They have all this material.
Right.
What only thing that had to be mentioned or added were references to October the 7th, but all the material is there. So that, I looked at it and I said, I wonder they have a professor who's Arab on their staff. So I said, let me look her up. She has done a major portion of their materials and published it. So I said, okay, that explains how it's so soon and how it's so quick, because I found there, within 2 days, fast-written articles by this professor. I said, all right, what else do I find? Then I found another link, which is something that we think all of this is like 9 through 12. But how does it get into K through 9? And then who showed up? It's a what? But PBS works with the San Diego Board of Education and with this professor, and they do animated history.
Right.
So cute, so deadly, but so cute. So I said, this is how the anti-Israelism, this is how the lies about Israel and the pro-Hamas, all of this is fed to the younger children because they don't have big reading skills. But the animated, it seems strange to say cartoons. So the animations have sentences. The teachers have the materials.
So just for our audience to understand, some of the content that Dr. Alfonsi is talking about that she found, there are examples in the curriculum, like, for example, when Abraham left Ur of the Chaldees, the text says that Abraham went to Palestine. Well, that can't be accurate, ladies and gentlemen. They're already trying to condition our children in the classroom by changing the narrative. When Abraham left Ur of the Chaldees, he left and went to Canaan. He didn't go to Palestine. There was no Palestine. Another example is Moses. When Moses left Egypt, Moses took the Israelites through the desert on their way to Palestine. Again, that was during Israel's captivity in Egypt. The term Palestine didn't even come along until the Roman period. But what they're doing is they're already conditioning our children with Palestine, using that term to mislead the kids. So as the kids grow up and they go from kindergarten to 12th grade and then on to college, they've already been conditioned with lies and propaganda.
And also to add to that, what the state boards of education are doing, and I found it in writing because I thought, no, they wouldn't do it, but they did. In California, the state board put out directions to other schools how to be sensitive and follow DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And therefore, what they write is we have to be as understanding to the Jewish children as to the Palestinian children. So what has been exchanged? There are no Israeli children, even though in California there are a lot of Israelis. They're Jewish children, but they're Palestinian children. And so the younger children, and that's handed out, because I found it, someone sent it to me from New York. I said, you're looking for this, I think, and I was looking for that. That's something else that they do. So looking at the question, how did the material get out? The other part of the question, or part of the answer, is we have to understand that these were not news releases that 1,100 or 1,200 people were killed in a day. These were not quick press releases. This was a history of the battle, and all the language changed, and it turned into the Hamas-Israel war. And then, so we have Education Week, which is they have a very large mailing list. They're very, very well done, and they're very biased. But the third one is the most dangerous, because if we want to combat San Diego, we have the grounds of ethnic studies. Edu Week, we have the grounds that they are providing misinformation and lies. But the third one is the one that frightens me the most. It is the union between the New York Times and the Learning Network. Now, the Learning Network is for children.
Right.
It has the PBS. It has other very skillful internet providers. But their stories, their history, are based on animated. And they also, the Learning Network, since they have to teach the students how to read. It doesn't say they have to teach them how to read the truth, but they have to learn how to read so they get questions. Right. But the part that worries me the most is the New York Times, because without a doubt, and easily proven, the New York Times is the media for anti-Semitism, anti-Israel, Holocaust, all of that.
Goes all the way back to the time of Hitler when the New York Times was burying what was happening to the Jews in Germany, in Europe. They were burying it on page 15 of the publication. They weren't putting it out so that people would know the atrocities of what was happening to the Jews in Germany at the time.
And also, the New York Times, unknown, I mean, I didn't know, doesn't mean anything, but I don't think you knew, we discussed it, that the New York Times provides exams, has websites, and has WhatsApps just for high school students, and that they provide lessons,
Right.
they provide testing, they work on the grades, and to find that and to know what the New York Times is. And the other thing I was wondering, some of us as adults, we have a hard time understanding the New York Times. The language is very advanced, but they have grammarians working with them so that what they do is for the level of the students. So that answers how it gets out. And the main thing is the universality,
Right.
that it goes from seed to sign-in sheet, it goes across through the websites of the state boards of education, and it goes to the organizations with very, very big mailing lists. So that's how it got out, but it isn't that they have a cadre of scholars sitting waiting to write these things. They have archives that you can take the article and change words, and you can make it refer, because none of the work that they do is pro-Israel. You just, same face, same name, just change the information.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we're going to wrap up this interview with Dr. Alfonsi, I want you to know that you can get more information about the research that she did on this white paper about October 7th and the curriculum. There are also other white papers on our website at pjtn.org. All you have to do is go to the homepage, scroll all the way down to the bottom, click on the link that says white papers. This is so critically important, and you understand why PJTN has been fighting this battle for over a decade when we found a textbook published by Pearson Publishers, which is now called Savas. But Pearson had a quote legitimizing Palestinians blowing themselves up in a Jerusalem restaurant because they were waging a war against Israeli government policies and army actions. It was that, when I saw that quote that a mother brought to me in her son's textbook, we started digging, and we found not just the anti-Semitic verbiage in the textbook, but anti-Israel, anti-Zion, anti-American, anti the Judeo-Christian values our nation was founded upon. And I understood then, if they're already targeting our kids K through 12, why should we be surprised about what's happening on the college campuses? We saw during the last year and a half during the war in Israel, we saw kids, K through 12 kids, marching in the streets with Hamas, a terrorist group, supporting them. This is unacceptable, ladies and gentlemen, and this all comes directly because of how we're educating our children. It is why this is so important. The future of our republic hangs in the balance. The future for our children hangs in the balance. Their future is hanging in the balance unless we stand up, we speak up. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. We're going to have more interviews today with others who are going to come and stop by the booth. And we're bringing you the information so you can take this information, share it with your family, share it with your friends. If you're watching this video and you are not familiar with PJTN, I want to encourage you to please get on our mailing list. You can go to our website also. We've got over 100 episodes of our Focus on Israel show, which is an episodic program. That program is broadcasting through our 20 global media partners, and we are reaching over 2 billion potential viewers with that message, with the biblical message for Christians. Why do we stand with Israel? Why is Israel worth fighting for? Why is America worth fighting for? So, ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. Thank you for all of our supporters who make these programs and this participation at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention possible. Dr. Alfonsi?
I have a sentence. May I say it?
Absolutely.
Please? All right. I wanted to say to everyone that what happened in Israel on October the 7th is not a Holocaust. It's not a pogrom. The vocabulary is very comfortable. It's a would-be genocide. But what it is and what America does not recognize and will not say the name, what went on and is going on is an Islamist, it is jihad. It is Quran driven. It is not driven by any other Bible, as was the Holocaust, as was the Inquisition. And America whitewashes and covers up. Israel has gone through and is going through a biblical jihad dictated to by the Quran. And I thank you for letting me say that, because it's something that people don't acknowledge.
Dr. Alfonsi, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. God bless you.
My pleasure.